So for both Catherine Malabou and Sabina Spielrein, what is important for me, what they represent, is that destruction is not separate from creation. From account of Catherine Malabou, what is important for her is to show that destruction itself is creative. And this is something huge, because we normally think of creation as opposite of destruction, and we see destruction as the obstacle to creation. So we never, because of that, Catherine Malabou claims that, and she's right, that we are never able to see destruction as creative, destruction as forming its own figures, as formative. And in clinical discourse, in scientific discourse, we always tend to see any destructive processes as just the opposite of creation, and we're not able to theorize them. Therefore, we're not able to see those life that are formed, or those selves that are formed through destructive processes as selves. We just see them as, or existence as such, we just see them as obstacle for someone. And her example is her grandmother with Alzheimer. The people with Alzheimer is just one of the examples of destructive work of plasticity, because destructive plasticity works through destruction. We would see those people as, we still think that there is the original self that is not touched by destruction, not touched by a certain state as Alzheimer. And whoever this person is now with Alzheimer, we don't recognize them as self. We just see them as the obstacle. They used their original self. But through her concept of destructive plasticity, Catherine Malabou was able to show that, to develop language that actually talks about this new self formed through destruction, the self for whom there is no salvation, to see the amount of tragedy that is in this self. Otherwise, this other positive accounts, they don't recognize the tragedy. It's just, we can possibly fix it, if not now, maybe in the future, and you don't see this new creation of destruction, and don't recognize the whole amount of tragedy in it. So for Sabina Spielrein and for Catherine Malabou, it's about destruction and creation. And it's again the similar logic that there is no life, there is just this destruction or death that is going on, and that we just call it life or form of life. It's actually destruction that is going on. For Catherine Malabou, it's sometimes problematic, because it's still, sometimes she talks about certain group of people as if they are those products of destructive plasticity, as if there is other project, and this group of people, particular people, are the deviation from how it's supposed to be. But sometimes she actually talks about destructive plasticity as universal, as this is what is universally going on. Maybe sometimes for some groups of people, it's just in more condensed form, in more intense forms, but universally, I would claim that destructive plasticity is the core plasticity. It's not going to end up well for all of us. It's never a path of salvation. It just, any cure is just the moment of rest in the general framework of destruction that is actually going on. For Sabina Spielrein, she would talk about creation as destruction. She would claim that it's just a matter of taste. You can see the same realities through the perspective that we prefer, perspective of creation. And for example, love or reproduction. We love to see reproduction and love as a matter of creation, because we multiply through it and there's more people as a result of production. So it seems obvious to equalize reproduction with creation. But she claims that you can equally, if you want, you can see it from a negative perspective as a destruction that is going on. The love, reproduction as expansion of destructivity. We can use concept of entropy here. It's expansion of entropy. Through what we see as a reproduction is just one sequence, an artificial view of a larger process of destruction that is going on. And it's interesting to think about love as death, as expansion of death, or love as destructive power at its core. Because, for example, my favorite example is maternal love, which it's easier to see as a creation, because you nurture a child. You're supposed to, you have to try to nurture a child, and you preserve life. So there is supposed to be more life and more positive things, but at the same time, it can be seen as the self-destruction, as a sacrifice of a mother. So you might have life that you cherish, but it's also life that is your death. And we can see any type of love, including romantic love, not from the positive perspective. But I think what is really going on is this destruction merging with the other, a sacrifice of your life, of certain features of your existence, certain aspects of existence to the other. So you die into the other. And it might be seen as a result, the person who you taking care of, who you love, might be seen as a positive result of your sacrifice, your destruction for them. But at the same time, they can be seen not as a positive, but as an extension of your destruction, because the child, seemingly positive entity, positive subject that you nurture and that's supposed to extend life, it can be just seen as, because it's also suffering subject, it's the result or embodiment of part of your sacrifice. You died into them, so it can be seen as expansion of your death. And if you see the future generation, it's even worse, because so this is just an example how love can be seen, something that by definition is seen for us as a positive thing. At the core, we can also switch perspective to more negative if we want, and see it as a um, actually expansion of destruction. And I also think that love, we tend to think that it's something that heals, and it might heal, but also this healing can be seen as within the larger, more tragic process of just suffering together, an expansion of suffering. And again, it's not to argue that we're not supposed to love each other. It's on the contrary, maybe to show what love actually takes. That is the participation in others' suffering without sliding, failing into the positive story. Because once you slide into the positive story and see something that can be finished, and something love as the project that has successful ending, that's not love. If you love someone, you stay in their suffering with other until they die, and dying is not, that's the end. And then after their death too, when they're inside of you, and when you love them even more and feel them even more present when they're not with you. So there's the tragic story that underlies love, and the tragic eternity of suffering, and the tragedy in love. It's not the project with successful ending. It's rather the story of a possible happy ending with love is, I don't know, like with motherhood. The idea is the successful mother love is that you nurture a child, and then child exists fully nurtured. It's not what's happening. They proceed to, like any human being, to their own suffering, their own extension of suffering. Maybe they have their own children as a punishment for what they did to us. But there is never end. There is a happy end to love. So love in this way, it's internal, but it's an eternity of tragedy rather. And being in love is being in touch with this universal human suffering. It's the opposite of the story of salvation. So this is love. It's not the type of love that is unhealthy because it's destructive. It's love itself that is unfortunately unhealthy. The story of a possible happy ending of love, when they have those movies that just end in a right moment when everyone is still alive, you just need to, that's happy ending. It's never a happy ending if you're involved enough. It ends either with your death or with the death of a loved one, and you never know which one is better. That's love. It never ends well. Story of a happy ending, it's rather the illusion for us, may be necessary to endure the opposite, the